Well, good morning everyone, welcome to another podcast. It's been a while, I'm afraid. I've been crazy busy in the shop. Got a lot of new stuff going on this year, so that's been taking my time up. But I've left Vanessa with a stack of orders on her desk and I've nipped off fishing for an hour. It's a cold winter's morning actually, and the river's been up. I've not fished this particular bit of river for a long time. It's fairly wide and normally quite shallow, but there's a bit of extra water coming down. There's certainly a bit of colour in it. There's a couple of little kind of waterfalls coming in both sides as kind of streams, I guess, just overflowing a little bit and dumping into the river. And surrounded by the old trees and the wood still. There's a road right up on top of the hill in the distance that I can see with a few cars on, but essentially I've got a couple of ducks here and that's it. I can see looking down the river there's lots of debris, old wood and some tree trunks piled up that come down in the high water. So this will be the last Euro Nymphing podcast. I've done quite a few of them, but I couldn't resist coming out with this today because I've got a new the new Vision Nymph Maniac's just come out. It's the twin tip, so you get a power tip and a sensitive tip with it. I put the power tip on today. There's a bit of extra water coming down and I might throw a big heavy fly or two just for a laugh. And this is the 10-foot 3-inch 3-weight. Usual setup, load of indicator mono down to a tippet ring, and then about 4 foot of nice Rio Floraflex Strong 6X. I've got one of my tungsten soft hackles on the point and then a little pheasant tail tungsten on a dropper. See how we go. If we don't get anything from this, I might try some big bright comedy flies as well, because sometimes that can be good fun with the Grayling. Bit of a shorter one today. I've not got much time, so I'm going to start flicking these flies out. There's a mixed bag of current, I guess. Here we've got, like I say, some streams coming in from the far bank. There's certainly some boulders in the river when the current's kind of snaking around the boulders. So there's all sorts going on really. I'm just stood in the middle of the river and I can actually fish both sides from where I'm stood, which is nice. I say there is a reasonable amount of colour in the water, so I might just swap one of these flies. I'll give it 5 or 10 minutes and then I might just swap one for something a bit more colourful. So as ever, with the old Euro Nymphing, tapping it up and across, or up and slightly across, and just letting the flies find their own depth, let them work, let them sink down, and then I'm very slowly just leading everything downstream. And the key is here is to keep a direct contact between the tip of the rod and those two tungsten nymphs. So any little takes or interest in those flies we will feel through the rod tip. They're mega sensitive, these rods, even this power tip, which is designed really for, I guess, big heavy flows and big nymphs. They're super sensitive. You'll feel, even if you nick a leaf on the riverbed as your nymphs tick down, you'll genuinely feel it, and even sometimes strike into it. They can be that sensitive. Right, I'm going to edge up a bit and let's put some across into the other bank. It's definitely a wading stick day today. It is not the easiest wade here anyway, but when there's colour in the river you can't quite see where your feet are going, and you definitely need that stick to be just having a prod about in front of you. So I don't know how your grayling season's gone so far this year, but not been too good for me, to be fair. Not through lack of fish, but you know, with the high water and snow melt and various other things, it's just not been able to get out and fish really. It's been a challenge. It started off well in, I think it was early October, mid to late October, that kind of time, and Had a couple of really big days, but then I've just not been able to get out really. Hence the lack of podcasts, and not really been able to get out for my, oops, nearly went in, for my own fishing either. Right, let's tap some into there. There's a big fallen tree here that's going across the river, and it looks like it's completely hollow in the middle, covered in moss. I don't know how long that's been there. Fair old while, I'd say. Like I say, I've not fished this particular stretch for a long time. I can't 100% remember where all the little holes and bits and bobs are. I can just feel those flies there, just ticking along the bottom. Yeah. I'm just coming up to a really big boulder right in the centre of the river, and the current's splitting in two here. So I'm left and right, across, left and right, and next to the boulder really, and just exploring both bits of current. And my fly choice today was whatever was on my patch. So I put my vest on, my fishing vest, looked at the patch, there was a couple of tungsten nymphs and I chucked them on. That's the thought process I went through. Laziness. But they're as good as anything just to start off with and try and get a feel for how the fish or lack of fish are behaving. And like I said, I'll probably have a change if I don't connect with anything in the first 10-15 minutes. There should be a fish or two here. Okay, right, let me squeeze past this boulder. I can feel the water, it is very cold. There's still a bit of, definitely a bit of snow melt still coming, I think, from the high hills, and that's obviously seeping its way down into the river too, so it's keeping it up, but keeping it nice and cool as well. I mean, the grayling will still respond even in the coldest of weather, but obviously if you get a big load of it coming in at once, it's never good. Okay, keep tapping away. Oops. The rod's lovely, I have to say. It's not the first time I've used it. I've been going through all the new gear that's come into the shop, and from Vision we've had the new Nymphomaniac, new Onky and new Stillmaniac which we've got in, so I've been out casting with them all and, you know, understanding the applications and working out what lines cast on best on what rods, all that kind of stuff. So the best way to get a new rod going is to get a fish on it. So where are we now? Quite steep banks now. A lot of you can see actually how high the river's been up if you look at the old vegetation on the bank there. It's all been flattened for a good 2 or 3 feet up onto the bank, so it shows you how high this has been. Dropped off a bit now, but still, it's still tasty enough for me. And the cold is just starting to nip at my fingers actually. So the fish I have had recently, not that, like I said, I've been out much, have not been in the, as you'd expect. They've just been hanging off into the slacker areas a touch, or just on the seams or the edges of the current. So that's where I'm kind of focusing things just now. Trying to just just running the nymph into the slightly slacker areas where the fish might just be holding and waiting for a morsel of food to come down. Try and watch the trees. Now it's fairly shallow now actually, and getting a bit quicker, so I've covered some of that water where I was hoping for a fish, but there is just a few slacker bits here that's worth probing. It's always interesting when you come out to a spot where you've not fished for a long time, like here. And I've had some good days here years ago, but especially this river has a tendency in the floods to change, so you can get pools that are really productive for a few years, and then after a big flood, and all it takes is some gravel to move, which it does here. It really piles up, and the pool's gone, or it's not as deep, or something's not right for the fish anymore, and they'll move, and those productive pools go. But equally, further upstream, where all that gravel's come from, maybe another productive pool's been created. But it's amazing the power of this river actually, because sometimes after a flood, when it's really moved the stones about, it's like a JCB's been out and been piling stones up there. You just still surprised after all these years of the power that this water can have. Right then, come on fish, where are you? So looks like there's a little trench here, slightly deeper, and I'm just running the nymph just down this trenchy area. I've not really had a knock, what I consider to be a knock yet. And he says that, and that was a fish. Just felt the kick, and then it was off straight away. Oh, at least there's something there. So there's a huge boulder in the middle of the river here. And there's a big pancake of flat water behind it, and then the current's actually coming down at a fair old pace either side of it. I'd say for the middle of winter it's probably not the best location, but there is a little slackness just on the edges of the current. On the seams there's always a chance of a feeding fish in there, so that's where I'm putting my flies. Now, they're interesting fish, grayling, as well, because they do seem to be a bit more nomadic than trout, and certainly a couple of bits of river that I do fish, you can fish 3 or 4 months during the trout season, or even through summer when after June the 16th, back end of summer, you can fish 2 or 3 months without seeing a grayling 1 year, and then another year you can fish 2 or 3 months and you catch nothing but. And I do seem to find on that particular river that they do tend to come in as a shoal and move up and down, and sometimes they decide to stay and sometimes they move. They just don't seem to be anecdotally, they don't seem to be as territorial as trout. They are happy to shift. This is getting a bit quick now. I'll put a couple of very prospective casts into this fast stuff, but I think that's probably too quick at this time of year. No, nothing there. So I think what I'm going to do is have a change of flies. Like I say, I've not really got the time today to be. Normally I'd move and try a different pool and try and work out where they are, but I'm running short on time, so I'm going to try a different fly, completely different approach. I'll dig into the fly box and I'm going to put some big bright stuff on and just see if that be interesting, actually, that experiment, because I'll fish the same piece of water up and we'll see if that gets a response. Right, so I've changed flies and I'm slowly wading back down to where I started. So I've gone for a tungsten egg on the point and a tungsten Euro flexi worm on the dropper. And in fact, these are the perfect flies for this power tip on this rod, actually. So quite a big flow, big heavy flies, and this tip will deal with them just fine. And I think I'll just have to have this run up, and then I'm going to rush back to the shop and pack some fly orders. You're certainly all buying your flies yesterday. I think everyone, well, I'm being included, is a bit stir crazy at the minute. It seems to have been a long cold winter and I'm itching to get out fishing again. For trout especially, can't wait to see the first rising fish of the year. Right, let's get back down here and chuck out some big blingy patterns and see if that makes a difference. Another 10 or 15 feet to go and we're away. Okay, this is about where I started. I'll just toss these flies up. Yeah, I can feel the difference. And then just lead them down. So I think I had one very, very quick grab on and off on the other flies. Just see if I can get something to commit to this. I enjoy fishing with these kind of flies, actually. I mean, I love fishing, or all fly fishing, as you know, but I do like catching, especially stuff like grayling on silly big flies. Okay, just keeping plodding my way up. I'm trying to let this egg fly just really get down to the bottom of the slacks. I'm going to try and find my wading stick. Actually go across a bit. I think it's a bit deeper here. Looks deeper anyway. I have to admit, actually, I've got some fleece wader liners on and they're doing a cracking job. But I'm stood in some quite deep water here and my wading boots are compressed a little bit. And my toes are starting to bite, I have to admit. So I think I'll only be another maybe 15 minutes and I'll be away. I like this kind of fishing, actually, when it's as much as when it's you're just catching one after the other. It's a little bit more mysterious because you don't quite know where the fish are. Maybe there's no fish at all here, maybe they've, like I said, maybe they've moved on or not feeding or not interested in my flies. There's all sorts of... Oh, that was a fish. That was a real hard take, and you do sometimes get that with these egg flies because they can sometimes just attack them, as opposed to just gently sipping it in. They'll attack it and almost thrash about with it a bit, and you get a real old pull on the rod tip. But that was a definite pull. I was just running it under a there's a tree that kind of arches over the river, and there's a little boulder creating a little slack pool, and I just ran it down off there, and something's obviously nipped out from next to the rock and grabbed that. Okay, let's go back out the other side. You can notice the way these bigger flies, they've got bigger tungsten beads on. I can notice they're definitely getting down deeper than before. I'm ticking a lot more bottom, but they're not getting snagged too much, so at least I know they're getting to the zone. Apart from cold feet and cold fingers, it's actually a very pleasant winter's day. It's very still, there's no rain. Like I say, there's still some snow on the tops of the hills, but it's a lovely day to be out fishing, for sure. Got a few things going on at the minute. So we've got some in-store sessions if anyone's relatively local to the store in Sheffield. Maybe people are listening who are thinking of getting started in fly fishing. We've got some in-store get starter sessions. It's just a talk really, and we'll look at some flies and have a chat through the gear. Fish on. Hey, here we go. Nice. Nice. Nice grayling. What's he taking? The worm. Come on you. Come to the net. Yay! Lovely. About half a pound. Well, let me just slip this one back. That fish means more than a lot of others actually. I love it when it feels tough and you're not getting anywhere, and then whether it's the change or not, or maybe I've just put it over its nose this time. Lovely. And that was fairly shallow but in quite slack water. Let me just toss another one out to that area and just see if anything else wants to have a grab. That was on the tungsten flexi worm. So it's made of twisted flexi floss. And it's got a bit of red tinsel and a rib in the body just to give it a bit of brightness, and then a gold tungsten bead. But they can do quite nicely when the river's a bit like this. What was I saying? So we've got some get started sessions, and then we've got some we're going to be doing some kind of rod casting days, really, not tuition, but where you can come out, and if you're thinking of buying a new rod this year, you can come out and have a test on all the new stuff we've got. So we've got all the Onkis, Nymph Maniacs, new Steel Maniacs. There'll be the Sage R8, Sage Foundations, Sage Sonics, and there's some new Sage stuff on the horizon, which is exciting. So yeah, keep an eye. You've got to be signed up to the newsletter, so always go to the website and sign yourself up to the newsletter, and then you'll be able to get kind of access to all these things. Right. Oh, I can't tell you how happy I am with that fish. I must have caught thousands of fish, very much like that half-pound graylings, but just on today, that's really brightened my day. That has made me day. So I'm just gonna try a couple more spots. It's where I thought the fish might be, so in the sides of the river, in the slacker water, out the main flow, but it is fairly shallow there, so they obviously wasn't craving any depth. I've probably got another 10 minutes of fishing in front of me, and then I'm going to call it a day. Let's leave this little spot and I'll just have a prospect as I move, and then I'm going to try some right across the far bank, I think. Like a tiny bit of sunshine just sneaking through as well. It's always nice fishing here as well, because there's not really any much population or anything really built up above here in terms of the river I'm on, and because of that, even though we've had a flood, there's no litter strewn up in the trees. Some of the lower bits of river and other areas of fish where you've got towns above, unfortunately after a flood there's all sorts of unspeakable things lodged in the trees, but you get very little here, so it is nice. Dropping a few in, prospecting it before I just move across to the other side of the river. I'm just going to have a go here now. Nice even flow here. You can see the bubbles on the surface are coming down in a nice even pattern. There's not too much current deviation, so it's a steady glide, fast enough to fish a nymph for sure. I'm just going to work these flies down here, and then we'll be, actually I'm heading towards the very bit of river I'm going to get out at, so it's a nice little way to finish now. I'd like to catch one on the old egg though. I've had some massive days on these egg flies, and then other days where they've not touched them. I'm not claiming that it's anything new, by gosh no, don't get me wrong on that, but I was with some American anglers actually at an industry day that had come over, and they just asked me the question, do you ever fish with egg flies in the river? And I said no, I never have. I know other anglers have, like I say, it's nothing new. So I thought I sat on it for a couple of months, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to tie a couple up. I'll stick a tungsten bead in so I can fish him on a Euro outfit with on a jig hook as well. And then I went out to the river to have a go with it, and I think I had 14 fish. This was late summer, mixture of trout and grayling, and it absolutely just was a fantastic day. So we ended up, tying them commercially and getting them in the shop. But it's one of those flies, it's like you have at the bottom of the box and nothing else is working, and sometimes just occasionally you pop it on and it can change everything. Let me just take that twig off. Again, it shows how sensitive these rods are. That little twig, I thought it was a fish. Just spin around and cover the other side before it becomes out of range. In fact, I can throw a bit of a longer line on this and I don't have to move too much. Yep, fish on. That was fun. I was just casting along the other side and I just noticed a little slacker bit of a current, and I just thought I'll just cover it, and I popped my fly straight into it and bang, it hit it straight away. Another little grayling, I think, about the same size as the last one. Come on, you. Yeah, on the worm again, on the tungsten flexi worm. Pretty much an identical stamper fish. If anything, it's a tiny bit smaller. Scrappy though. Right, let's just slip you back. Perfect. And so it's quite a fast piece of water I was fishing in, and there's a tree, and under the tree you can just see that it just slackens off. I just noticed the bubbles has slowed a little bit. I just thought I'll drop it in there. It looks like a holding spot, and literally within 2 seconds of the fly hitting the water, something had grabbed it. Nice take as well. I'm going to just try a few more across there, see if there's anything else wants to have a grab. Well, the change of flies did the trick. Nothing on the egg, but the worms taken two, so I guess I have covered certainly covered the bit of water where the first fish took. Second one, I'm not so sure I covered that first time. Who's to know whether the change of fly did it, or I've just covered the fish this time. But certainly it's given me the confidence to, would give me the confidence if I was fishing today for much longer, to actually continue with those flies for sure. Well, you know what, that's me done. My fingers and toes are telling me it's time for a cup of tea and go and warm up. But that's been a really interesting hours fishing, that. Tough conditions, and managed to winkle a few out with a few changes and a couple of little pulls as well, just to keep things interesting. And this new rod is, I have to say, is lovely. Works really, really nicely. Thank you so much for listening. If you want any help or advice, or you're interested in lessons and guiding, it's www.peaksflyfishing.com, and for our online store with everything from rods to reels, flies, leaders, waders, you name it, it's shop.peaksflyfishing.com. And if you're ever in the Sheffield area, do come in, have a cup of coffee, come and say hello, and sign up to that newsletter, and you'll get invitations to these events and things that are happening this year. Thanks for listening. Until next time, goodbye.